Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Cohen. And he offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Massachusetts. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this is the second year I do a lot of the Chicopee ones.
So that's awesome. So today you're going to be telling us about the Chicopee Street Burial Grounds. So describe the early history of this cemetery.
Alright, this is a very old cemetery, of course. It's the oldest cemetery in Chicopee. It was made in 1741 when people started settling into this northern parish of Springfield. Remember that Chicopee didn't form officially until 1848, but people were settling here from Springfield. And of course, you need a meeting house, which is a dual function of a place to socialize, a place to have government, and a place to have masses for whichever religious group wants to meet. So the first meeting house was very close to the cemetery, and thus you need a cemetery. And who settles most in this area was the Chapin family. And if you count up all the burials in the cemetery, and then count up only the ones with the last name of Chapin, it turns out that one half of all the burials are Chapin burials. And that's an incredible number. And so you're tempted to call it a family cemetery, but it was near the first church, and it was for all the settlers in what would be Chicopee, and thus it's not really a family cemetery. It's a churchyard cemetery, because the first church was close by. Now, the first church is not there anymore. The earliest church here has, that one was taken down and a new one put up. The first Congregational Church of Chicopee is along this Chicopee Street. It's a little further away than it used to be, but it was here. So this is a churchyard cemetery. Now, why so many Chapins? Well, the Chapin family were the ones that built many houses around this area and stayed settled here. They really prospered very well in this area, and that's why there's a lot of Chapins around. Other families were around, and of course, many are buried here, but they were a little bit more scattered around Chicopee. So the early history of Chicopee is dominated by this Chapin family. And it definitely came from Springfield, where Springfield in its early years had a very large Chapin settlement. So if you ever have a chance to get in here, and it's a locked cemetery, if you ever have a chance to get in there, you'll see a lot of Chapin stones, including the mausoleum is a Chapin mausoleum.
Now, when was the Chapin Mausoleum built and why?
Well, the reason why is because one of the members of the Chapin family really wanted to make this place look better. And to do that, he had built a beautiful mausoleum. Now, the mausoleum is incredible because inside they have mosaics, and mosaics are little pieces of artistic structure that are placed onto the walls, interior walls of this mausoleum. And they're Tiffany mosaics. And that means the highest craftsperson were making these pieces. Also, the doors on the front of the mausoleum are Melzar Mosman pieces. He was one of the greatest sculptors in the United States. He was from Chicopee. And so, seeing this, they hired him, and he made a great structure on the front. So this is a beautiful mausoleum. There's not many mausoleums around the area. This is one of only two in Chicopee. There's one in the Second Jewish Cemetery, and there's one here. Now, this was built in 1913, and it was ordered by Chester Chapin, and the reason why is he wanted his father to be buried in a grand fashion in the cemetery with the rest of the Chapins. And so he built this mausoleum, and of course, it's not just the fathers inside of here, but also the rest of his immediate family. So if you go around and try to figure out who was in there, it's Chester Chapin and all the many relatives that he had. And this was a grand family, so they had many people being buried here. His wife, of course, is buried here, Dorcas Chapin. All right.
So quickly, before we continue with the rest of the interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you are interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214 and they are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. And they are also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, what cemetery reburials were brought here?
There used to be another cemetery in Chicopee. It's now gone. And what happened was that one of the Baptist members of Chicopee wanted to form his own congregation and church, and he escaped, is a good word, to South Hadley. Now, remember, the Baptists, like Roger Williams, the founder of the Baptist religion, escape or they leave because the congregations are so heavy presence and they want to dominate the religion. And so Baptists tried to escape and leave. So this person, he left Chicopee and he went out to South Hadley. And he got a congregation going. It wasn't big enough, though, and there wasn't enough money. So he had enough money to build a house, but he did not have enough money to get a church going. Now, the problem with this is you're left with not much. And so you're going to have when you do, you're going to have people die, you're going to need a cemetery. And when that happens, well, pause it. All right, so he was the first one of his congregation to die. What happened, he was out on his horse. He must have got off the horse, and he's kicked by the horse, and he was died by the wounds to his head. And they found him, and of course, the Baptists didn't like to be buried with the congregations, just like they didn't like to be around them. And so they started a new cemetery in South Hadley called the Pine Grove Cemetery. And in 1788, when this minister named John Pendleton died, he was buried there. He was the first one there. And it was thought that he and the rest of the congregations were buried there. I think about 50 people ended up getting buried there. Now, what happened first was the Lamb family of South Hadley wanted to be buried here also because they had joined in the religion and their family was very tight with the Pendleton family. And so Daniel Lamb and his wife and then some of his kids were buried there. But in South Hadley, there was another cemetery developed in 1838, and that was the South Falls Cemetery. And people in the Lamb family donated land there, and they wanted some of their family members taken out of the Pine Grove Cemetery nearby, only a quarter-mile away, and brought into the South Falls Cemetery. Now, what does this have to do with Chicopee? Well, in 1809, the boundary of the county between Hampshire and Hampden County was shifted over. And when that was done, it was such that South Hadley lost some of its land. And that land at the very southern end of South Hadley went over to Chicopee. And the cemetery, the Pine Grove Cemetery, went over to Chicopee. And Chicopee gained a cemetery. And the Pendleton family was there. Now, some of the bodies in the 1850s were moved from this Chicopee Cemetery, Pine Grove, into the South Falls Cemetery. But they were the ones only with the gravestones in front of them, where it was easy to figure out there's a body there. And I think about 27 people were moved that way into the South Falls Cemetery. Now, that means there's 23 bodies left behind without gravestones. And in the 1880s, a person was hired to find those bodies and move them to the Chicopee Street burial ground. Specifically, it was the year 1888, and they found 23 bodies. None of them have gravestones, and they were moved to the Chicopee Street burial grounds, and no gravestone was added. So we don't exactly know where the bodies were placed into the cemetery.
Now, describe the plat map for the cemetery.
Okay, so most importantly, there's a beautiful plat map. A plat map is a map that gives the positions of all the bodies in the cemetery. Plat maps can denote any map that is very much defines each little detail of an area, and it's usually a very symmetric map. So there is a plat map made, and this map is available at the Chicopee Public Library in its history room. And if you look at the map, there is a corresponding list of all the burials. I've taken this plat map and I've put it on to my website, and it numbers all the burials. And this is a good way to go around, because remember, this is a churchyard cemetery. There's no overall symmetry. It's not like a lawn cemetery. It's not even like a garden cemetery, where at least if it's curved lines, you still have some symmetry to the way things are arranged. This is a churchyard cemetery, and a lot of the bodies were put in haphazardly, and a lot of stones face different directions. And old stones can be mixed with new stones, so forth and so on. So I've tried to find the 23 burials put in the cemetery. I cannot come up with them even yet, but someday I hope I can do that.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com.